Hi guys, Lori here with Sew at Peace. In today's tutorial, we are going to be making a purse. So I made a patchwork purse for myself, and I believe I showed it in my market vlog. Somebody asked for a tutorial, so we're gonna give you one. And I'm gonna make it slightly different than the one that was seen in my video. Here is the bag. So I just use it as a crossbody bag, and it works great. I love it. I have my little trial lip balm holder on here, so I keep all the rejects, and this is the bag. So each block on here is 5 inches by 5 inches, and we're gonna be making our purse today a little bit different. So we're gonna put appliques on the purse. If you don't wanna do the appliques, you don't have to. That's the way that I wanted to make the purse for myself. So the inside of this bag just has a metal closure, and it has a black and white buffalo check, and it has 4 pockets on the inside. So there's 2 on each side. And I am really loving this bag. I take it everywhere with me. So I will show you the fabric that we're going to be using. So I'm going to be upcycling these denim jeans that my fiance gave me. He no longer wears them. They have holes. There's holes here, holes in the crotch. So we are going to give these jeans some new life. And the appliques that we're going to be doing, they're just going to be square blocks within the denim. So these are the 2 fabrics that we're going to be using. So it's basically the same print, just in different colors. And these 2 fabrics are by Tula Pink. So I'm going to get started on cutting all of this denim and the blocks, and then I'll be back with you shortly. I'll just highlight, or I'll show you guys how I cut up the denim because it can be a little bit tricky. So I try not to cut along the side seams if I can, just because they're very thick. So I'm just cutting right along this edge here. All right, so I'm gonna finish cutting up the rest of these denim jeans and the fabric. So I'm just gonna cut 5-inch by 5-inch squares on everything. So I'm gonna do 19 of these, or I'm sorry, 18 of the denim, and then I'm gonna do 8 of the cotton fabric squares for each panel, and I'll be back. All right guys, I am just putting all of these appliques on the denim pieces. So the way that I'm getting them centered is I'm just marking a line on here. So I'm doing corner to corner, and then I'm taking my fabric marker, drawing a line diagonally. Then I'm taking my glue stick, and you can put some fabric or some glue in the middle of the denim or directly on your cotton fabric. And then I just line up the corner to the line on the top, and then I'm doing the corner to the line on the bottom. So there's a closer look at it. So you can see the corner is going along that line, and the other side, the corner is touching that line up there. So that should make it centered. Okay, so I'm just gonna finish the process, and I will be back with you shortly. All right guys, I'm gonna start on the first applique, so hopefully you can see this. I don't really have a good tripod for my camera, so I'm elevating it on something on my little rolling cart. I am back. So I have all my appliques done. So here's one of them, and we're just gonna do a zigzag stitch on here. So I have my stitch length at number 2 and my width at number 4. All right guys, this is the first one done. So I just zigzagged around the entire square twice. So I'm gonna finish doing that with the rest of the blocks, and I will be right back with you guys. All right guys, all my appliques are done. So this is what they look like, and I'm gonna sew all of these together, and I'll show you what's next. Okay, so I got my first row. I'm just positioning these the way I like the design to face. Just alternated the purple, pink, and purple. And I'm not going to clip anything together. We're just gonna sew them together. Okay, so I have all of my little strips done. There are 3 in each row. And before I sew them together, I need to flatten out these seams. So I'm just taking this seam roller and I'm gonna roll them down just to help it out. And I'm gonna take it over to the iron and just make sure that it's extra flat, because we want the rows to be as flat as possible before we sew them together. So I'm just using this little tool that I got online, and I can link this for you guys in the comments as well. So it works pretty well. I just want to make sure that the seams are extra flat. So I'll iron both the back side and the front side, and then I will meet you guys again at the sewing machine. All right guys, I'm done ironing all of my pieces. So I took a break. I ironed my pieces and then I went to go collect the eggs from the chickens. We have 12 chickens. Anyways, I just want to say I'm highly disturbed by my chickens. So I went out there to go collect the eggs and I refilled their food and water. And just as I was leaving, I see the chickens going crazy, and there's one chicken running with an egg in its mouth. First of all, I didn't know they could pick them up, so I don't know if it had already punctured the egg. I don't think it's possible for the whole mouth to be over it, so it must have punctured it. But anyway, so it started running, and then I hear the crack, and then all the chickens come and they're chasing the chicken that's running, and it was just really chaotic, and I was just very disturbed. Why is my chicken eating its egg? Do you guys have chickens? Have you seen this before? I just hope that they don't make it a habit, because I want the eggs. You guys should not be eating your own eggs. That is very disturbing. Okay, well, on to sewing. So I'm gonna lay out my pattern again, just so I remember and I don't mess anything up. So some of the layers of the denim are kind of lighter than the others. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but I tried to space it out in my layout as well. So just so there's not too many, because there's less of the lighter color ones, so I try to space those out. Okay, we're gonna get to sewing the layers together. Okay, so I'm just laying these on here, right sides together, and you can see the back side, the seams are laying really flat. Sometimes I press the seams to one side, but these denim layers are really thick, so I'm trying to reduce the bulk here, so that's why I opened the seams. So with denim, it gets a little wonky. So you'll cut things and it'll look straight, and then you iron it or press it, it gets a little weird. So I'm just lining up my seams here just in case the edges are a little bit wonky. So I want it to get as straight as possible. All right guys, so I pressed my seams down again once I sewed all of my rows together. So now we're gonna square this up. So I use this big ruler. It's 12.5 inches by 12.5 inches. So I like this because it's a larger square and it just helps to square things up. Okay, so I usually do one end and then the other end, and then I'll up the middle. All right, so we're just gonna line up the middle. So I just line up the edge of the bottom portion with this ruler, and then I do the same with the top part. So there's just a little bit of excess right here in the middle. Do the same to the other side. All right, and then I just give it another check by folding it on itself. Everything looks good. So now what we can do is cut our lining. So I like to cut the lining after I make the top portion when I do this patchwork, because sometimes if your seams are off or whatever, your measurements may not be exactly what you think it is. So I just measure the top, then we'll cut our lining. So this comes out to 14 inches wide by 27.25 inches. So grab my lining fabric. My lining fabric, I'm gonna use this pink polka dot. I think it matches pretty well. What did I say? 14 inches? I'm just gonna cut off the selvage end here. All right, so I need to iron this down, and I'm gonna make a pocket with this leftover piece. So let's see what the measurements are. This measures 14 inches by 17 inches. We are just gonna sew the top part, and then we'll flip this right side out, and then we'll sew these edges in with the side seams. So I'm gonna go iron these and I'll be right back. Okay guys, so we're gonna put our snap buttons on here. So I'm trying to think if I should put the pocket on here first or the snaps. No, let's do this first because my iron is on and hot and I want to iron this fusible fleece on there. So I just use a scrap piece of fusible fleece and cut a little square. Okay, so we just need to get the center of each end of our lining. So we're working on the shortest side. So I'm just gonna make a little tiny notch in each side. That way we know where the middle is. I'll just usually line this up with one of the lines on my sewing mat. And then I measure 2 inches down. So I put my little end. So these are two pieces that you're gonna have with the metal snaps. So there's a male piece and a female piece. So I'm gonna use this little end piece as a guide. So we're gonna put this 2 inches down. So we're lining it up so that the middle part is at the 2-inch mark. And then I'm gonna mark the other end. Then I'm gonna take this over to the iron and I'm gonna put this little square on the back side where the dot is. So this is just gonna give some structure to the lining piece. So that way the button doesn't just pop out of the fabric. So I'm gonna do that and I'll be right back. Okay, so I ironed on my backing or my little piece of fusible fleece on the back. So now I'm going to, and I should have done this earlier. I forgot, it's been a while since I've done a magnet since I've done a magnet closure. So I'm just gonna draw a line on the sides. That way I know where to poke the holes. So I have my lines marked and I'm gonna use a seam ripper to just cut little notches where the lines are. We're not doing anything to the middle point. So we only put our seam ripper in this piece and the other line. So we're not doing anything to the middle. Now I'm gonna take one of my pieces. So I'm using the male piece, it doesn't really matter. You're gonna stick that through those notches that you just made. And then we're gonna take the little end piece here, slide it in, and then you can either push these out or push them in. I'm gonna try it inwards. I think the instructions on here said to do it outwards and that's what I've been doing, but you can kind of feel it. So I'm gonna see what happens when we poke it inward, push it inward. Okay, so there's one, and then we will do the other side. Here's my middle piece. I thought I lost it. Okay, we're putting our backing on. We're just pushing it down. We're gonna push the other side down. And I'm just pushing it against the mat just to get a little bit more pressure on it. Now I'm gonna go sew my pocket. So you guys can watch me do that. So I'm just folding this piece down in half. So the 14-inch, we're still keeping the 14-inch width. Folding this, and I'm gonna go sew just this top part right here, just this line, and I'll be right back. Okay, I sewed my line. So now all I do is put my hand in here, flip it right side out, and this is gonna be our pocket. So I'm gonna take this over to the iron and iron this flat. So we're gonna iron it flat and then we'll attach it to our bag. Oh, and I forgot, actually I wanted pockets on both sides. So, oops, what do we do? All right guys, so I have I ironed this flat and then I just top stitched where the top of my pocket is gonna be. I just decided just to do one side of the bag as a pocket. So if you want 4 pockets in your bag, then just duplicate this piece here. So it's 17 inches by 14 inches. And you'll just do exactly what we're gonna do right now, but just on the other side of the bag. I'm gonna fold this in half just to kind of get an idea of how far down I wanna make this. And our box corner on the bottom is gonna be really small. So I'm not too worried about going too low with the pocket. Okay, so this pocket might be a little too long. So you could probably get away with making it 14 inches by 16 inches, or maybe even 14 inches by 14 inches and then rolling it in half. This is gonna be an extra deep pocket, which is fine. So I'm putting this up 2.5 inches from the bottom. So our box corner is gonna be a total of probably about 2 inches. So I'm pretty happy with the placement here. I don't wanna get too close to this button either because it'll be hard to stitch in this area because we're gonna put a line right here in the middle. So actually I'm gonna mark my center point right now. That way I don't have to try to figure it out once it's on there. So this just makes it easier. So I just use my fabric marking pen and I'm just marking the center on both sides. And then I'll find that 2.5 inch mark again. Okay, where's my pins? Oh, here they are. Okay, so we're gonna clip this together, making sure that we only attach one layer because we don't want to accidentally sew the back side to this. I'm gonna get a pin actually to pin this part. I don't want my pocket sliding down. We're gonna do the sides first. And then we just need to sew the bottom part as well. All right, and then we're gonna sew the line down the middle to get that pocket divider. You could draw a line on here. I'm just gonna take a chance here and sew just down the middle. So our lining is done. All right guys, we are gonna work on our outer piece. So I just folded it right sides together and I just clipped the top just to hold it together, but we're just gonna sew down the sides. Okay, we're gonna do the same with the lining piece. We just sew into the pocket area just a little bit. That's what I like to do, and then come to the very bottom of the pocket, but still sew on part of the pocket. And then you're gonna sew down, leaving that gap. Okay, and actually, I can make this a little bit smaller. I'm gonna stitch it up higher a little bit. Hi guys, I am back. It's a new day. So I did take a couple days break from this bag. I spent so many hours working on it, and anyways, the other night I took a break to make dinner and then I realized that I forgot to put my batting on the panel. So you can either use some type of batting, or in my case, I'm trying the fusible fleece. So this is just an iron-on. So you cut it out just maybe like 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch shorter than your project. And that just helps to reduce the bulk a little bit. But I think I forgot because the denim is so thick. I think it's more noticeable on cotton, so I would have remembered right away that I forgot, but since it's a thicker material, I completely forgot. So I undid all the stitches and I adhered this fusible fleece. So what you can do is either stitch in the ditch. So stitch in the ditch is sewing directly down the seam, or what I like to do personally is I will sew on each side of the seam, so to the right and to the left of the seam on all the blocks. But since I have used fusible fleece, I'm not going to do any top stitching on here. So it's up to you if you want to do it. I'm just gonna see how it turns out. I like the way it looks right now. So I also wanted to try the fusible fleece just to see how it compares to the other purse that I made. So I don't remember if I talked about that in the beginning, but either you can use a poly cotton or cotton batting or polyester batting, whichever type of batting you prefer to have in your bag. But the purse style is more of a hobo style, so it should be like a little flexible. It doesn't need a whole lot of structure, but I think this fusible fleece is going to provide a little bit more structure than the poly cotton. So I'm going to see how I like the poly cotton versus the fusible fleece. So I will have to update you guys again in the future as far as if I like the fusible fleece or the poly cotton better. So what I'm gonna do now is just take this over to the sewing machine and sew it along the side, and we are almost done. So I cannot wait to be done with this bag. You guys, one thing I forgot to mention too is make sure that you put a denim needle in your sewing machine. I realized earlier as well that I had forgotten to change my needle only because my stitches were skipping. So I noticed it when I was unpicking all of my stitches from the side. So I ended up going over all of my seams and just restitching them. So that is very important. And I couldn't figure out why my machine was skipping stitches. And it just dawned on me, I forgot to change my needle. So I now have a denim needle in here, so there's a huge difference. I did a little sample on a piece of scrap denim, and we are back in business. All right, I'm just gonna flip this right side out. It's much stiffer now. All right, guys, so here's our outer bag. We're gonna move on to bag straps. So there are different types of hardware that you can use for your bag, but this particular set that I purchased come in sets like this. So it includes one D-ring, one clasp end, and then one buckle. So this is to make it adjustable. Ideally, it would be nice to have like a set that includes one buckle, two D-rings, and then two of the clasps. But I'm gonna show you how I make it with these three items. Just in case you decide to get the same hardware, you can make it other ways if you want. I'm just showing you how to utilize it in the way that it comes from the shipper, which is Amazon. So these were purchased on Amazon. So I used this webbing, and this is 52 inches. So if you're really tall, you can make it longer if you want. I made my straps on my black and white bag a little bit too long. So this is a little bit shorter than the last straps that I did. So I'm gonna try 52 inches, and then I cut a piece that is 3 inches. So we're gonna put the D-ring over this little piece of webbing, and then we're gonna stitch this on one side of the bag. So we'll get there in just a minute. And then I'm gonna show you how to add the buckle, so the adjustable buckle. So we're gonna take one end of our webbing, we're gonna put it through one of the holes, and then we're gonna put it down on the other side through the other hole. So it's gonna look like this. Then we are going to fold the edge over just a little bit, and you don't have to do this. You can leave it raw, like with a raw edge if you want, and just put some fray check on it. But we're gonna fold it down again onto itself, and then we're gonna sew a line. So we're gonna sew a line down here, and then I'll add just another line on there just to make sure it's secure. So I'm going to stitch those lines, and then I'll be right back with you guys. Okay guys, so I just sewed a couple of stitches down two sides of this. You can see it there. You can use a zipper foot too if you want to get really close, but I'm okay with this distance. Next, we are going to add our clasp. Okay, so I don't do this all the time, so I might do it the wrong way. So if you do it the wrong way, you'll just start over. So I put my clasp in here, and then we're gonna take this other end, and we're gonna put this end along the outer hole. So we're gonna put it in this outer hole, and then we're gonna put it down on the other side. So we're gonna loop it back down like that. And there is our adjustable strap. So you can see this is gonna be connected to the D-ring, and it looks like I did it correct. So just take a look at it, make sure your stitches aren't on your pretty side. So this one, it looks like I got it down. Next, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your 3-inch piece of webbing, and you don't have to, but I just stitched a line down towards the edge just to make sure that it doesn't shift when I'm sewing it onto my bag. So you'll sew the D-ring on there. And now I can go back to my Juki. So I sewed these on my Singer machine right behind me because I have white thread in there and I didn't want the gray to stand out on here. This strap is like a beige and gold color. And actually what we can do is clip these on the bag before we go over to the sewing machine. So it doesn't really matter. And you know what? I forgot to put my tag on here again. Oops, I was gonna put a side tag on there, but it's fine. Okay, so we're just gonna put the piece with the D-ring, and it doesn't really matter which side you put it on. If you have a label, you can adjust it if you need to. And I'm just gonna put a clip here, that way I know it's centered. Then we are going to put our raw edge of our strap, so the other side has the buckle on it. And just make sure it's going in the correct direction because you don't want this side to be on the outer part when you sew it. So it's kind of like sewing two pieces of fabric together. You're gonna put pretty side to pretty side. So you're gonna look at this pretty side, and then you're gonna make sure you have that pretty outer edge and attach it to the side seam on the other side. So I just put a clip on there as well. So this is what we look like. So I'm gonna take it over to the sewing machine and base stitch on there. And you know what I forgot to do? Normally I like to have a little bit of an overhang just because when you fold it over or when this gets sewn down and you do your top stitching at the very end, I like for it to have an extra reinforced stitch. So if you leave maybe 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch, usually I leave 1/4 inch, that seems to work out okay. And we're gonna put our basting stitch on here. Actually, I'm gonna take my table off. Okay. Okay, there's one piece, and then we're gonna do the other side. So this is the strap side, and we're gonna pull it out about 1/4 inch. So our straps are on. Next, we are going to put our pretty side inside the lining piece, and the lining piece is inside out. And then you want to make sure you tuck in your strap inside your bag. So what you can do is you could pop it out of the hole that you left on the side here so it doesn't get in the way. I'm just popping it out a little bit. Okay. Then you're gonna line up your side seams. So your side seams should be right in the middle of your straps. And then we're just gonna clip these down. Okay, so we have all of our clips on, and we're gonna take it over to the sewing machine and stitch that on. We're gonna sew just a little bit more than 1/4 inch. You can go to 1/2 inch if you want, but I just do just a tiny bit past my 1/4 inch line. Okay, so now I am just gonna pull this handle out, and then we're gonna take our main piece and pull it out from that side hole that we left. Okay, and then before I close the hole, I like to look at it just to make sure that all of my edges look even. So sometimes your stitching lines can get a little wild, so I just tuck everything in and look at it, make sure it looks good. Okay, I am happy with this, so I'm gonna go ahead and close this hole. So what I do is I just find my hole and then I grab the piece of fabric directly next to it and on the other side, and then I just give it a tug and tuck in my raw edges, and then I'll put some clips on here because we left kind of a big hole. Okay. And then we're just gonna stitch over this hole. So we're sewing on the very edge, so just as far right as you can go. So about 1/8 of an inch. And then I just take the stitch all the way down to the end of the pocket just so there's some uniformity. Okay, so that all looks good. We're gonna tuck this lining piece inside, and then we're gonna start clipping the lining down. Now we're gonna top stitch the entire rim. So I like to start near one of the sides. So I'm gonna start here. And I just changed my stitch length to a number 3. Oh, and this side seam is very thick. There's a big hump here, so I'm just gonna use my little hump jumper. If you don't have a hump jumper, you can just take a piece of fabric and roll it a few times and just put it directly back behind your presser foot, and that just gives it some height so it's closer to the level of the hump in the fabric. All right, so we are done. Well, we're not quite done actually. Okay, so I'm just gonna cut off all my threads. So we're just gonna take our strap and just clip it on the D-ring on the other side. All right, guys. So I'm gonna give you some options as far as what else you can do with the bag. So my black and white bag, I did box the corners. So on this one, I probably shouldn't box the corners just because I have this like patchwork or applique in here. So it's gonna cut into that design a little bit, but I'm still gonna box it just a little bit so you can see. If you like it like a flatter bag, you can just leave it like this, but we're gonna go ahead and box it. So you can do a French seam if you know how to do a French seam. I'm not gonna do a French seam. I was going to in the beginning, but this denim is very thick. So I'm just gonna just leave the little tail in here, and it's really not that noticeable. You could box both the lining and the main fabric separately before you go to this final stage, but I don't mind the little tails inside. So that's what I'm gonna do, is I'm just gonna leave those little tails. So we're gonna flip this bag inside out. So we're just gonna make sure that the corners are really poked out. Ooh, it's really stiff with the fusible fleece in there. I'm gonna use my knitting needle for some extra force, and actually I'm gonna use this end because that end is not as sharp. But if you're making this out of cotton, it shouldn't be this difficult to get the corner popped out. So what you'll do is from the side profile, you'll just make sure everything is poked out really nicely. You'll fold this flat so that the seam is right in the middle. And then what you can do is, depending on how wide you want it, what I was planning on doing was doing a 2-inch box corner. Okay, so you're gonna take your corner and just put a clip in it. And then you're gonna measure however wide you want to make it. I only want mine to be 2 inches. So I'm going to mark a 2-inch. So it's 2 inches from edge to edge here. And then I'm gonna do the other side. So the good thing about doing it this way too is if you don't like the way it looks, then you can just undo the stitches and then you'll have a flatter profile bag. All right, I'm going to stitch this line on here. And we just changed our stitch length back to a number 2. All right, guys, we are all done with the bag. So here is the final result. I think it turned out super cute. This is what it looks like on. So we can wear it either way if it gets dirty. So this is where I have the strap at. So I still have a lot of room to adjust it to make it longer if I need to, or I can make it shorter. And here's the removable clasp on one side. So you can, if you wanted to, just mirror this side of the bag to the other side of the bag. But again, I'm just showing you how to make it work if you only have the 3 hardware pieces. So this side is just sewn into the edge. As you can see, when I boxed the corners, it kind of removed the denim trim on the bottom, and it cut into the applique just a little bit, which I'm okay with. And I'm just gonna show you real quick the edges. Here's how the corners look. So as you can see, it did cut into the applique a little bit. Again, I'm okay with that. Okay, and then again, this is what the inside looks like. It's just the pink polka dot. It has the metal clasp and the 2 pockets on the inside. So you can barely notice the tails that are on the bottom of the bag. These pockets are quite large. So I am really pleased with the way that this bag turned out, this purse. I can't wait to use it. So I think it'll be the perfect bag for the springtime since it has these fun pastel pink and purple colors on here and a floral print. So I am really loving it. Let me know what you guys think, and if you decide to make your own crossbody purse, please copy me on Instagram. My handle is sew.at.piece. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you give me a like and subscribe for more content like this. And I hope you have a joyful and peaceful day.